This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
Hey everyone, this is Austin.
What's going on, guys? This is John.
And you're listening to the Voice of the Fan Sports Podcast. All right, John, back episode 14A for Purdue. Just kind of sort of going along here. I don't know if you hear my dog barking or not, but
She just wants to be featured on the show. It's okay.
She does want to be featured, and the funny thing is well, first off, I got engaged yesterday, which is always fun. And it's funny because she started barking really loudly because my fiance sneezes so loud and obnoxiously that it always scares our dog, and she always goes into a barking frenzy. So that's what that was. I heard the sneeze, and then I heard the barking. So that is what happened. So Connor probably won't have to edit that out. You can just roll with it. But yeah, covered in that was, like I said, some personal news. I did get engaged last night. She did say yes, so always, good stuff for that. Outside of that, we're just chugging along here as far as us here at Voice of the Fan, continuing to get everything set up on more Michigan sports entertainment. But we're just going through the Big Ten season for basketball. Had a good win, tough loss, and then some help, which is always nice. And then on top of that, we'll be continuing our series of breaking down the 2019 recruiting class with the next three on my list, which are quarterback Paul Pifferi, I believe is his last name, Kyle Jornigan, offensive lineman, and then Garrett Miller, the tight end, who
got a quarterback tonight.
Yeah, we do have another quarterback, not another one in this class, but Jeff Brom got one last year from Arizona, this year from California. So tapping the West Coast for some QB recruiting. They'll join. I know Paul was an early enrollee, so he'll be joining Nick Sipe and Jack Plummer, and then obviously starter Elijah Sindelar with David Blau leaving. But we'll break that all down. And then Garrett Miller, the tight end, was actually really exciting to kind of watch his film. For a tight end, he's really athletic and really fast. So kind of reminded me of Noah Fant a little bit. So we'll dive into that here in a second. But so we'll start with Purdue basketball. Last Saturday, a tough Nebraska team coming into Mackey. And, obviously Purdue is undefeated at home still. So to me, I feel very comfortable with anyone kind of coming in at this point to Mackey because we did end up beating Michigan State, who was arguably one of the harder opponents that we would have at home. And, Nebraska, I think their best player's name is his last name's Copeland, is out. And Nebraska was a top 25 team at the start of this year when they had everyone healthy. Little banged up, little hurt across the front line there. But regardless, still a pretty tough team as we always say, the Big Ten and Big Ten basketball, anyone can beat anyone on any given night, especially if you're on the road. Have seen a couple road upsets. Yeah, it's never easy. But Purdue able to take care of business. The final score was 19-point win, but a little bit deceiving because at halftime it was 33-31, and Purdue was kind of just hanging in there, so to speak, against Nebraska. Both teams playing pretty well. So it was definitely one of those things where Purdue needed to stay on top of everything, continue to run consistent offense. They were playing really well defensively. Nebraska was just getting the looks they wanted and making some tough shots. But, Carson Edwards, obviously, he shot 50%, 8 of 16, 27 points, 9 extras from the free throw line. But it was definitely the Grady Eifert party. And I definitely know that I have been tough on him, especially early on in the season, where he's still, I think, trying to find his groove a little bit, maybe some confidence, worked his tail off, definitely deserving to be out there with how hard he works, but always thought and felt like he was a little bit of I hate to say liability, but, he wasn't scoring a lot. So I was hoping, Aaron Wheeler would start, which he did end up, Aaron Wheeler would start over him, I think a couple times, maybe not much, but the effort placed finally came through. Grady Eifert was 100% from the field, 4 for 4 shooting, 2 for 2 from the 3-point line, 7 boards, 2 assists, and 16 points total, which was a career high for him. So absolutely awesome time for him to get going. And really helped Purdue seal Nebraska away, where they were able to outscore them 48-31 in the second half and secure what would be their 17th win on the season. Like I said, against a tough Nebraska team. And that was the 8th straight win in the Big Ten. Thinking back to where we were at 6-5 and really just kind of questioning what kind of team we had, not necessarily hitting the panic button quite yet, but was certainly hovering over it and having the shakes above that button because we really wanted to press it. But, sure enough, this Purdue team has come together really, really well. And I don't know what they'll be ranked at the end of next week, but, currently sitting at 12th. Obviously we had a tough loss on Tuesday, which we'll talk about here in a second, but, overall just consistent performance. And I think one of the things that Purdue, especially Coach Matt Painter will look to do is get Travion Williams, just figure out a way to get him away from being in foul trouble. Only played 17 minutes. We know how talented he is. We know how good he is, but he gets into foul trouble and he sits. And then he kind of just gets out of the flow of the game and then picks up another foul right when he comes back in. And it just puts himself in a tough position because Purdue definitely could use his offense. And we'll talk about this here again in a second in the Maryland game. But I think something to look forward down the stretch for Purdue is Travion Williams just staying out of foul trouble, being a little quicker.
Stud.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Giving Purdue.
Yeah, sorry to jump in there, but man,
you're fine.
I like Travion a lot coming out of high school, and it's tough to not land him, obviously. But man, he reminds me so much of Swanigan, and it's the same number, right?
Yep.
And the way he works in the post, he looks like. He has post moves like Nick Ward has now, and Nick Ward's a junior, so that's insane to see in a freshman, especially in this league. The way they bang down low. It's a physical league, and he fits in perfectly in the Big Ten. And probably a 3 to 4 year player, starter, obviously, and he's gonna wreak havoc in the Big Ten in the future. He's really polished for a freshman, and super shocked to see him play this well this early.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is he's still getting into his playing shape, playing body.
For sure.
Came to Purdue and lost. He was overweight, lost 50 pounds prior to the season starting, and I think was continuing to do work on his body, and which is why he didn't see a lot of the floor. And then against Michigan State, we saw his coming out party with a double-double, and he's just continually looked really nice in the post, very comfortable against anyone he's going up against offensively, and just really being able to finish well, and he can get up there. It's got some really nice dunks on his highlight tape, right now. So really an offensive weapon that Purdue really needs. But again, defensively, a little late. I think it's just because he's still getting to his play speed. And when he picks up an early foul and has to sit, by the time he comes back in, the game flow, he's got to try and catch up defensively. Again, we'll talk about here in a second with Maryland, but just reacting a little slower, picking up another foul, and then having to sit more, which, again, I think Purdue really needs him out there to stay consistent. But overall, great effort against Nebraska. Like I said, Grady Eifert coming out party, shooting perfect from the field. Carson Edwards was 50%, and Nogel Eastern had himself a double-double, 12 points and 10 boards. So just a really good job all-around team effort against a tough Nebraska team, which you would like to see that because transitioning into Tuesday night's game against Maryland. Obviously Purdue was tied for first with Michigan, Michigan State being a game back from everyone, or half game back, I think, actually. And really looking at Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue, who are the three teams that were at that point were contending for first with the tie, or excuse me, Michigan State being the closest, and then Michigan and Purdue being at the tie. Purdue's schedule, Maryland was probably the hardest game away that they had left on their schedule. Obviously IU will be tough, but they went into East Lansing and beat Michigan State, but then turned around and lost to, I want to say, Ohio State. But they did lose another game. Let me actually double check that. They lost to.
Who were you talking about there? I didn't hear you.
IU. So
I can check for you. Yeah, they lost to Ohio State, and I'm pretty sure they lost
Iowa.
Iowa.
I got it. Yep, I got it up. So even with the big win against Michigan State, they have dropped their last two. So
yep.
IU, you still feel really good. Obviously, they'll play really hard, and they're playing up to their competition, at least somewhat. But again, I think Maryland was the game Purdue had to get through, and not necessarily saying smooth sailing because you're going on the road, to some other venues in the Big Ten. But looking at Michigan and Michigan State's schedule, they still have to play each other twice.
Yeah, that's if you're a Purdue fan and you see that. I mean, and they play each other twice in a 10-day span. So, I mean, you kind of figure they'd probably split it, but Michigan's actually kind of owned Michigan State in the past couple of years basketball wise. So, you're a Purdue fan. God, you probably. I mean, what do you think? Also, you probably want us to split, right?
I agree. I think you want a split, so both the Michigan teams have an extra loss on there, but because I think that's just going to make it easier. Honestly, if Michigan State won both games against Michigan, I feel like I would be okay with that as well, just because Michigan State, I know we're all kind of even across the playing field, but I think that just helps more favorably because Michigan did blow out Purdue so badly. I don't think you want them, equally split, because if it's a 3-way tie or a 2-way tie, I think Michigan would technically, if you look at a head-to-head,
I mean, it affects seeding, but I mean, I'm pretty sure they would just be even if there was a 3-way tie, I think it would just be like a 3-way champion.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
I remember a couple years ago, Michigan State shared the Big Ten title or something. So, and then I think that they'll go into tiebreakers for seeding or something. I don't know exactly how that works, but
yeah,
I honestly think we're going to figure it out, though. I think there's going to be at least a two-team tie. It's either going to be a 2-team tie, or I think Purdue comes out on top, like I said last week.
Yeah, definitely going to need some help in that regard. So, Michigan State got a big win on the road against Wisconsin, which was good for them. But, they welcome Ohio State. And Sunday, Rutgers is probably going to be a win because it's in East Lansing. Then they're on the road at Michigan. Then they turn around and go on the road to IU, have Nebraska, and then their final game, which could be a huge game, is welcoming Michigan to East Lansing.
And you know what's funny, dude? Like I was like, you know what? I'll be able to find tickets easily for this game, right? Like, senior night, Michigan State, and then, dude, like the cheapest ticket I can find is like $110 a piece right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure come closer if people are getting desperate to sell. I might find one under $100, but oof.
Yeah, somehow I don't think that's going to happen with how everything's going.
One can hope, man. One can hope.
Yeah,
that'd be a rough senior day, losing at home to Michigan, sending your seniors out. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't know how it's going to play out. I mean,
exactly.
If Purdue slips up, which they did a little bit last year, even though they won the Big Ten.
That's actually funny because I forgot how good Purdue was last year. I mean, this might hurt some Purdue fans, but I seen on Twitter they posted the year anniversary when Miles Bridges hit the buzzer beater in East Lansing.
Yep,
that was like 4-2 or like something like you guys were like third in the country or something. I did not realize you guys were that highly ranked. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a really big game, and obviously playing that closely wasn't the same this year, but also a different team. But
that was one of my favorite games I've watched as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, minus the step back three for the win.
It's actually funny when he took that shot, dude. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh my god! And then I was like, then just completely different emotions once he hit the shot, obviously.
And I think he'd been a little spotty.
He was really spotty that game.
Yep. He wasn't locked in like he usually was, and he had Matthias on him, who was our best defender, and just created that little extra space and just
such a good game.
Sunk it, which was just a dagger, but ended up being okay because Purdue would go out and finish on top of the Big Ten.
Yep,
but
for sure.
Michigan does not have it easy either, so they're actually welcoming Maryland to coming off a big win against Purdue at home. They're going on the road to Ann Arbor. So that'll be Michigan's first big test. They're on the road against Minnesota, who I think game. Yes, I agree. The Barn is a tricky place to play. Welcoming Michigan State after that. Then they have Nebraska at home, and then they've got okay. We're not going to load it. Oh, there we go. Oh, wow. Actually, I did not know this. Then they have to go to Maryland before they go to East Lansing.
They got to play Maryland twice. Yeah, Michigan has the toughest road out of all three.
So, honestly, if you're Purdue, you want a split with Michigan and Michigan State, and then you want a Maryland split with Michigan. And I think that would kind of pave the way for an outright Big Ten title.
When you look at each team's schedule, too, it just really shows you how tough the Big Ten is and how, especially in basketball and college basketball especially, it's anybody's game, man. I mean, anybody's night pretty much. I mean, you have, Michigan State blew out Maryland. It wasn't even a game. And then Maryland comes home. They play Purdue super tough and get the victory. And then Michigan State loses to Indiana. Michigan losing to Penn State. I mean, this league is just insane. I mean, there's no night off. I think Penn State was winless still, weren't they, in the Big Ten going into that game?
They had one win.
Look it up, but
I think they had one win before the Michigan game.
Okay, so they now have two, and they played them tough. There was like 200 people in the crowd at Penn State, so I don't want to hear about a home court advantage. That was just they played their heart. Like, these teams just continue to play hard. Like, I mean, it's fun to watch. There's never just a night where I can come in and watch a game, like, as a Michigan State fan, and be like, all right, like, we're just going to blow the bricks off this team. Like, with Indiana, I thought we were going to win. Obviously thought we'd beat Illinois, but even going into the game, it's like, man, we could easily lose this one. That's what I love about this league.
Yeah. So with all that kind of being talked about in the schedules, so Purdue, it said we have the easiest one, and when you look at it, we certainly do. So we welcome Penn State on Saturday. Obviously, they played us really tough on the road, but in Mackey, I give the edge to Purdue. We're undefeated against all competition this year at home. So, that I think is a win. And you're not going to run into that trap where there's not a lot of people at the Penn State game and you don't have the juices going and you kind of get caught off guard a little bit. So then the next game, on the road against Indiana, who's just – I mean, they looked okay. They looked great to start the year. Went on like a 9-game losing streak, beat Michigan State. Everyone's like, okay, they woke up. Now they've lost their last two to date. But you're on the road in Bloomington, where Purdue has owned them recently, but still, Romeo Langford, Juwan Morgan can go off, and it's almost like a trap game in a way, with a rivalry game.
It's weird how they're bad. Like, I mean, they play teams tough, and it's just like they can't get over the hump. I mean, they beat Michigan State, but people got to remember Michigan State shot like 7 for like 25 from the free throw line or something crazy like that. And don't get me wrong, they played hard, but they're playing all these other games hard. It's like they just can't get over the hump on their own, like in these games. And it's crazy to see what the talented team they have. And they have the potential to have a loaded class next year with 2 5-stars. They already got Tracy Jackson Davis, who's a 5-star big man who's trying to recruit Keon Brooks pretty hard. And so, I mean, I think Miller's got them in the right direction. I don't know what's really going on in that locker room right now.
Yeah, obviously Indiana can recruit, but head-to-head talent versus coaching, Purdue's got the edge. Purdue doesn't have any 5 stars, and top 15 ranking versus Indiana. with double-digit losses. So, again, it could be a tough game. On the road, then the following game later that week against Nebraska, who, like we saw, played tough for a half against Purdue before letting it slip away. Dangerous. I think that's a dangerous game. But, certainly on paper, looking at the Big Ten standings, Purdue should win. Welcoming Illinois after that, which, it's at Mackey, so I'm not really worried about that. Just Purdue gets juiced when they play at home, and it's just Mackey's one of the toughest places to play.
It's crazy to watch them at home, dude. It's insane.
Yeah, I actually saw something. Purdue, so Mackey Arena, all the games are sold out, so you can't buy a ticket for any more home games, which there's only 3 left, but you can't. I mean, there's no more tickets to buy, so that's kind of a cool thing. But
you going to any?
No, probably not. Not this year. But I'm setting my sights more on seeing how football works out, and if they continue to do well, I might buy season tickets for them. So we'll see.
That'd be fun.
It would. But so after the Illinois game, we welcome Ohio State, and then the final 2 games are on the road against Minnesota, which we can't forget. Minnesota had a 13-point lead on Purdue, and Purdue was able to use a 21-2 run to basically win that game by 10. But that was at home in Mackey. Minnesota looked on. Now we're on the road in their place, so definitely a tough game right towards the end. And then a road game against Northwestern, who has played teams really tough. I think they took Michigan to the wire. I think they took Wisconsin to the wire. So certainly another team that you just got to be careful of. But statistically speaking and standing speaking, Purdue should have the edge over all the rest of their remaining games. So if they can win out, and then Maryland can take one from Michigan, and then Michigan State split, your Purdue Boilermakers could probably be the outright Big Ten champions this year, which I think a lot of people, if you said that to any Purdue fan, including myself, after losing 4 starters, basically 1,500 points gone, and you said, yeah, Purdue has a really good shot of winning the Big Ten title again, I would have probably been like, well, no, probably not. Carson Edwards is good, but I don't know if he's that good to get us there.
You tell me, it's kind of funny. You had more faith in Michigan State than I did. I had more faith in Purdue coming into the season than you did.
Yeah, and it's just kind of funny how it all works out, I guess. Still, obviously, a lot of games to go, and we won't know for sure. But as of right now, I think Purdue is a half game back because we're at 10-3, and then Michigan State are both 11-3. But again, that'll even out at the very end. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, and that's obviously really exciting. And if teams continue to win these 3 teams lose another game and Maryland keeps winning, then we're talking with Maryland, because Maryland only has 4 losses, and I think Wisconsin might only have 4 losses. So definitely, if down the stretch, if games get dropped,
at 5 now,
it'll be crazy. Oh, that's right. Wisconsin's going to have 5 because Michigan State won.
Yep.
But so Maryland's up there. So if some teams, the top 3 continue to drop an extra game or so, Maryland will be in the conversation, and they'll have that much more to play for. Who I think for them, it was another instance where they're a really young team as well. So just a lot of fun to watch in the Big Ten this year, which is always speaks volumes for the conference in basketball. Obviously the ACC takes a lot of spotlight because of Duke and North Carolina, and obviously Florida State, Virginia Tech are up there now. But obviously in the SEC you have Kentucky. Florida's usually good sometimes. But obviously the Big Ten, I think, is still the best conference for basketball, and I think this year just really shows again how tough it can be. Kind of going down the stretch here, but
couldn't agree more. Obviously we're a little biased, but I think when you look at it league to league, how deep the Big Ten is, I think the Big Ten edges out the ACC. I don't even know who won the Big Ten ACC Challenge this year, but
I think the ACC might have done it just because I think a lot of the teams in the Big Ten early were struggling.
Yep, 100% agreed.
So it was. I know Purdue lost their game to
We did
Virginia
too.
Tech.
Michigan beat the bricks off of North Carolina, but yeah, we lost to Louisville. You guys lost to Virginia Tech, right? You just said.
IU got smoked by. Well, I guess they didn't get smoked by Duke, but Duke beat them pretty handily.
I thought at that point, I thought Indiana was like a team to watch. Like Dan Dockich told us they would be, but we all, both fan bases can agree on one thing: our disdain for Dan Dockich. But we won't get into that.
Right.
He's called like 3 Michigan State games in a row, and I might lose my mind.
Well, what can you do? What can you do? That's it for Big Ten. For Purdue basketball, obviously going down the stretch here, we're getting closer to March. So we'll see. We're projected as a 2 or 3 seed, I believe. I mean, if we win the Big Ten or the Big Ten tournament, Purdue could be as high as a 1 seed. You just never know with how things play out. But something definitely to look. Keep your eye on. But definitely, I think a top 5 seed, unless they somehow just drop the rest of their games, which I do not think will happen. But yeah, definitely going to be really exciting come tourney time to talk about that and talk about. I love March Madness. And love watching all the games. And I just always remember high school, college, finding a computer, finding that cool teacher, whoever, and getting a game on, didn't matter what, and just filling out tons of brackets on ESPN and being absolute garbage in all my picks. So I always have fun doing it every single year. I'm pretty sure one year Michigan State and Duke blew my bracket up, day one because they both lost to 15 seeds, which just sucked. So
yeah,
I'm sure it was worse for you, but yeah, for me, I picked Michigan State to win it all, I think.
I was at work watching that. Like, I was like, you know what? It kind of sucks that I have to work through this game because you want to watch it. But I was like, we're playing 15 seed, no big deal. And so I'd go into this little break room we have at work in the office, and it was on the TV, obviously, and it was just like, man, why are we not pulling away yet? And I remember late in the game, and I just hit my hand on the desk that's in that room, like punch it a little bit. I'm like, it was frustrating, man. It was just, I mean, in the Middle Tennessee State, I mean, they just played the game of their lives. It's not even like we played horrible. It's just one of those things that, man, it was almost meant to happen. So heartbreaking, definitely, but happens, I guess.
That was a team with Denzel Valentine and Miles Bridges. Nick Ward,
Miles wasn't there yet.
Oh, he wasn't there yet? Oh, okay.
Denzel didn't play with those guys. It was Denzel, Costello, Bryn Forbes was there. I think Dawson was gone by then. So, but it was definitely a nice little team they had there.
Yeah, I think they beat Purdue in the Big Ten tournament in the finals.
Yeah, yep. And it was supposed to be a down year for us because we lost Travis Trice and all of them, and we weren't even supposed. We made the Final Four the year before, I believe. And then we were supposed to. Then we beat Kansas because of big shot Matt McQuaid, who I thought was going to be a star at this point because he hit a ton of shots against Kansas early in the year, but he's been streaky. But it got me going on Michigan State. Now we'll get back to Purdue.
But it'll be fun. I think it'll be a lot of fun to do. The tournament. Obviously, maybe even go a little bit outside of the Big Ten, and I'm sure John and I will be doing some brackets to see how we do, and maybe we can get in touch with the Michigan Sports Entertainment guys and do a little bracket challenge with them and whoever else. So definitely a lot of fun coming up. But I love the NCAA tournament so much, and it's why I think this is a personal opinion. It's why I think college basketball is better than the NBA. It's just so much fun to watch for me. Obviously, UMBC beating Virginia, the first 16 seed to beat a 1 seed ever in the history of ever. Loyola Chicago being the Cinderella, and then a Michigan team just kind of coming out of nowhere. And granted, they had an easy road to get there, but making it to the title game when they got hot at the right time, but you never thought that they would do what they did. So just love all that exciting piece, of that. So it should be a lot of fun breaking that down. And then obviously we'll be able to transition from that to the NFL draft stuff, which, just oodles and oodles and oodles of fun to come. But before we get too carried away, continuing the series of the 2019 recruiting class breakdown. Like I said earlier in the podcast, we'll be doing quarterback Paul Piferi from Villa Park, California. Then we'll be doing Kyle Jornigan, offensive lineman from Youngstown, Ohio. And then Garrett Miller, the tight end from Round Rock, Texas. So we'll go ahead and just dive in with Paul Piferi. And honestly, I like him. And the reason I do is his mobility.
Yeah, and before you get going, I'll just give my quick comments on him. I watched a little bit of film on him. The thing that impressed me the most, which is kind of weird because I think he's got like a really kind of funky throwing motion, but I mean, they'll obviously get that fixed he's going to be an early enrollee, but it slings like the ball just comes out of his arm fast. Like he's got a cannon. It looked like just some of the zip he would have had on the ball. And the thing that impressed me the most when he was running is he's already sliding in high school, which you love to see him protecting himself early.
Yes.
Good habit to start. And there's one play, I forgot what the other team was, but they were red jerseys. He's got two guys on him. He breaks out of that, and then he breaks another shoelace tackle type, and he just launches it downfield with ease. It comes out of his arms quick. Obviously not a guy that you're going to see right away, but he's definitely got a lot of potential, I think.
Yeah, I think you've hit on every aspect of what I was seeing too. Obviously 6'5", 210. Comes from a mixed pro spread style, so good to see that he has experience under center. That's not something that Purdue's going to have to teach him, how to do, because they do. Obviously, they run a lot of spread, but they will go under center every once in a while. So not having to worry about that exchange is always a plus for a recruit. And then just his mobility. And I think this year the biggest difference between Elijah Sindelar and David Blau, obviously Blau had an incredible year, but I really think his threat running the ball, just scrambling, keeping the play alive, he had a lot better mobility than Elijah Sindelar. And obviously we know Sindelar was battling really bad tendonitis in that ACL repair, which he played on a torn ACL the final 4 games, I think, when Purdue won the Foster Farms Bowl. So understandably, why he was not mobile, but surprisingly, Elijah Sindelar isn't really that mobile guy. He is your prototypical pocket passer with a cannon arm. Paul Piferi has a good arm. John, I agree. I think he's got a little bit of a hitch in his elbow where you just see it pause for just like a split second, but it's not that clean, smooth throwing motion that, you see some quarterbacks have. But, I don't think it'll be an issue. If they work it out, they great. If not, I think he's okay because it doesn't affect his release time at all. Puts the ball on a rope, on the move, can do it, in the pocket, has good footwork, good movement, staying on his feet, not throwing off his back foot, driving through his hips, off his front foot to get the ball down the field. And I really think you saw that a lot when a lot of the seam routes that his offense ran, just putting it on a rope, on a line, getting it over, a safety playing down or a linebacker trying to drop, and just really just sticking it right into the outstretched receiver's hands, which is not an easy thing to do. Was a little not disappointed, but I definitely would have loved to see a little bit of some touch throws, just kind of whether it's a goal line fade or, a 9 route where you've got, a back shoulder touch or something like that, where you kind of drop it in there because you're not always going to be able to just put, a ball on a rope because the Big Ten athletes will be able to, that it makes it easier for them to intercept it when it's kind of driven like that. But when you drop it in there where only your guy can catch it, that's where I want to see some development if he doesn't have that already. Again, I didn't see it, but doesn't mean if he doesn't have that, but definitely something I would like to see in the future, some touch throws, just some easy stuff with just a little bit of finesse, not rocketing everything in there. So, that's one thing. He had some film from which I encourage anyone that enjoys watching high school recruits, scouting them. Anytime you see the opening, which is Nike's recruiting camps, definitely take a look at that film. It's one-on-one stuff. So for Paul, it was a lot of just footwork drills that I was able to see, which he's got great footwork. But I think the little kind of hitch in his throw kind of showed not inaccuracy, but when you have a stationary target, you always want to see him kind of put it right in front of their face or in their chest. Saw some throws where some were a little high, but still catchable. There was one that was overthrown, just too much on it and out in front, down and away a little bit, which I understand some of the drills he was moving, which it's definitely going to be harder, but there were some where it was just some drop backs, a little bit of a shuffle for footwork, and then you just stick the guy and there were just some of them that you'd like to see a stationary, just on air throw go right to him. So I think some refinement for accuracy could be useful for him. But outside of that, definitely has everything as far as a quarterback is concerned. Obviously, you love the size at 6'5" and 210, and I personally love the mobility. I think that just adds another dynamic to Purdue's offense. And I think we've seen Jeff Brom go out there and offer quarterbacks, some dual threat guys, and not really just guys that really good at running it and, will sit back and then throw a ball. Guys that are true dual threat guys that look to throw, but man, are they a threat on the ground. And I think if they get one of those guys, Purdue's offense is going to take that next step. But I think Paul's a really good step in that direction because he's big and he's got an arm and he's athletic. So as far as the quarterback carousel is concerned, Elijah Sindelar, if no doubt in my mind, will be the starter for this Purdue team. I know Nick Sipe took some snaps as well during garbage time when Blau was out, whether that was a blowout on either end. Obviously Jack Plummer, redshirt freshman, that was an early enrollee last year, still there. And now Paul coming in as well to this group. So I think Paul's got some things to work on. I think it'll be good for him to sit because Jeff Brom's offense is not just your typical, we're looking at one matchup and throwing the ball. It's a really good mix and match of reads, unless you're just giving it to Rondell Moore, which obviously that's your only read. But with all the weapons Purdue has now, it should be a lot of fun to really just let loose with everything. But I say Paul's probably a redshirt guy, and then next year we can maybe talk about a quarterback competition. I think Sindelar will be gone unless he gets another year of eligibility because of his knee tendonitis. But we'll probably talk about him again next year. But he might get some looks in the spring game because he's an early enrollee, which you always love to see, just how they do against similar talent as far as Big Ten's concerned. But that will be seen. I think April 5th is the Purdue spring game, so we'll kind of see it then. So we'll move to our next guy, Kyle Jornigan, an offensive. He played tackle in high school. I think he'll be playing inside for Purdue. I believe he's an early enrollee. I think I'll have to double check that, but I mean, 6'4", 320. He's a big boy. And the funny thing is his crystal ball projection is 100% to Kentucky. So kind of an interesting thing. It's a good job with Purdue going in there and grabbing him. I think was getting looked at by Michigan State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State. Didn't get offers from them, but always when those types of guys are keeping their eye on players, you like to see that. So, obviously, John, I don't know if you saw anything on him, on Kyle or not, but
not as much as I watched on the quarterback, but I mean, I kind of paid attention to him a little earlier on when, like you said, Michigan State was kind of looking at him. I thought he was really strong. I mean, I didn't really, like I said, I didn't watch too much. I thought he got off of the line really well. But other than that, man, I don't really have much for you. But I thought he was a powerful guard type of player.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things at his tackle spot was power. If he gets his hands on you, it's basically game over. From the looks of it was more of a run-heavy offense. So he'll probably need some work on some pass protection, especially going from tackle to guard. It is a little bit different. He had the right technique, which is that kind of that kick step slide where you're kind of kicking your outside foot.
When you give me offensive lineman terms.
Well, I mean, it's when you kick that outside foot and you're kind of sliding interior, so you're keeping your weight balanced as you move. Usually, and you want to see quickness in a tackle position. Obviously, if he's projecting to guard, you're not going to be using that quite as much. But his footwork did look a little slow. At 320, that might be a little too heavy. He moved pretty well on film on his pull blocks. Did a really good job first step getting going and using that momentum to get to the next level or put the next guy on the ground. I mean, aggressive guy, looked for contact, just loved blocking people and just did not back down from anybody, which is awesome. You love to see that. I think this might contribute to his kind of being a little heavier. It looked like he played a little top heavy. And by that, I know not a lot of people that listen to this podcast would listen to the breakdowns of some of the Michigan State recruits on the offensive line.
Loves our offensive line class.
I do. You see them play. You see almost all of them play through their entire body. You don't see them play top heavy. You see them, use their lower body strength.
So kind of almost using all upper body strength is what.
Yeah, a little bit, and it just looks like he's just kind of bending, at the waist a little. It's kind of hard to describe. But you can just, if you put, say his film next to one of the Michigan State guys, you just see a little bit more polish and finesse and technique on some of those Michigan State guys. And now I think, like I said, I think Kyle Jornigan is an early enrollee. So if they can, lean him out a little bit and he doesn't lose his power, just gets a little quicker, I mean, he'll be a nasty interior, offensive lineman. And that's what Purdue's missing, that, we graduated both guards and our center. Obviously, I don't think he'll play center, but I've seen articles already about concern with the interior of the Purdue offensive line losing 3 starters. The tackle positions, Matt McCann, his injury was not bad against Auburn, so he'll be okay. Grant Hermans has been hurt, but athletic enough. Love him out on the left side. So if he can stay healthy, the tackle positions are good. It's just the interior is the big worry. So I think, if he can refine himself, not play top heavy, play through, use his lower body. When you see him make contact, you kind of just see him take on upstairs in his pad level. You don't see that true, playing through your hips. And when you engage, you kind of see the whole body kind of engage, and you see the power generate from the hips up into the upper body and explode through. He would just kind of not lean on people, but I mean, when he got his powerful hands on you, it didn't, he didn't blow people away immediately like you see in some other guys' tape. It took a little bit, but he did, because he's so nasty, he would get him to the ground. So, certainly not he's got the right mentality and the attitude for it. Not a concern there. Maybe slim down a little bit. Love his athletic, pulling. He can definitely do that as a guard. And, obviously working on his pass pro, coming from a run heavy scheme, especially transitioning from tackle to guard, will be a little bit different. And I think the big thing is, being a little top heavy and bending, playing kind of, waist up, that leaves you susceptible from, to power on a rush inside from a defensive tackle or a stunt, kind of because you're more catching blocks than kind of delivering that punishing blow, when you play through your whole body. So some things to work on, certainly, but Purdue is really thin and they've got great coaching. So I would not sleep on him. If he does really well, he might be a rotation guy to start in the spring, summer, fall, and then just kind of depends on, what happens with the offensive line battles at that point. I don't know. So I think definitely a guy that can dress though. So we will see. But, that is That's Kyle Jornigan for me.
Go ahead and introduce another guy, and then I got to talk about this kid, the tight end. Go ahead and introduce him, and then I'll get going into it.
Yeah, and I mean, some really exciting tape from Garrett Miller, the tight end from Round Rock, Texas. And there was a little bit of concern because TCU came in late and offered. And I think his mom or he's got family that works there. So being able to stay home may have been a little enticing, but he stayed true. He committed to the Boilermakers. And I mean, I'll just read his measurables real quick before John goes in. Sounds like he's pretty excited, which I am too.
Am I excited for this guy? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And like I said, I saw Noah Fant looking at this guy's tape.
100%.
So we'll see. But 6'5", 223, good size, good play weight, 4.77 40. And that was from, I think, February of last year. So who knows what it is now. 4.4 shuttle, and then just under 29-inch vertical. So an athlete through and through. John, go ahead. Tell me what you like.
So, first of all, absolutely loved the film that I watched. Second of all, he's got a great head of hair, it looks like.
Yep, it's got a flow going.
That's always a positive. But, I mean, who is this kid and how is he rated so, as he is? I mean, I think Purdue has found an absolute diamond in the rough on this kid. I don't know if he'll contribute right away because, I mean, like we always say, I mean, definitely a highlight reel type of guy. But, it's going to be different going up against Big Ten defenses. But, man, I mean, he's got everything you could possibly want in an athlete as a tight end. I mean, he was breaking the top off of defenses in high school, lining up as a tight end. And he was just open all of the time, man. It was just crazy watching that happen. And then to my surprise, what happens in the second half of the film? This man is just blowing past offensive linemen as a defensive end. I mean, he reminded me of Kenny Willekes on the defensive side, Austin. I mean, I don't know if he'll ever play defense for you guys, but he seemed like a high motor. You're not getting in his way type of player. I mean, he was just given the other offensive line looked pretty small, but man, the way he was just throwing the guys to the side, getting through the second blocks, and just getting right to wherever he needed to be in that. But I mean, obviously, he's a tight end for you guys, and that's where he'll probably be. But it was exciting to see some defense from him. But on the offensive side, he is just a highlight reel waiting to happen, and I feel like we are going to be talking about him a lot in a couple of years. He's got all the measurables, like you said, man, and he is going to be a red zone target to fear for years in the Big Ten. And every down time, I didn't see really any film of him blocking. I don't know if you did, but I mean, as of right now, this is one of my favorite gets for you guys in your class, and I can see him contributing. Maybe not this year, but as a sophomore, this kid's going to be a stud.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically. Stole my thunder a little bit, which is okay.
Sorry,
that's good.
I was just
good.
watching this film and I'm like, who is this kid?
Yeah,
he has offers from Colorado, Kansas. I'm like, geez, this is a fun part about I feel like of being Michigan State and Purdue fans is that we are forced to look at these 3-star kids because that's what we get. But as D'Antonio said, and I'm sure Jeff Brom feels the same way, I want football players. The stars and everything, that means one thing, but I want football players. And boy, let me tell you, this kid is a football player, and he's going to be a stud.
Yeah. I mean, just we talk about the comparisons in my mind to Noah Fant. And the reason I say that is because when you watch his pass catching film, it's not a lot like John basically said. He popped the top off a defense as a tight end, which you don't usually put those words into the same sentence.
Even in high school, even tight ends in high school, you don't see them just blow past the safeties with ease.
Yeah, usually they're really undefined as, athletes in the sense of they're not going to pop the top off a defense. That's not what they're going to be doing. They're going to make the tough catch. They're going to, be the mismatch against a safety or a linebacker, make that tough catch, be a reliable guy, maybe get away from pursuit, but not, straight out just blow the top off and run away from everyone. And I think the thing that was impressive to me was quick screens, the bubble screens to him, which you don't really throw bubble screens to tight ends. And I just have nightmares of watching Noah Fant take a bubble screen around the edge and basically carry a Purdue defender 10 extra yards. It was like a 60-yard gain on a bubble screen to a tight end. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is absolutely insane. And I think Purdue has that potential with him. And you love to see that kind of, because I mean, you have the speed in this class as is with your receivers. You've got the David Bells, you've got the Milton Wrights, the Mershawn Rices. I mean, the King DeRose. You got a lot of just quickness, speed. TJ Sheffield. So many names and so much quickness on this team. And then you add the element of a tight end that could basically run with the best of them here. I mean, obviously he's not going to blow past Rondell Moore or any of the receiver guys, but for a tight end, he'll blow past just about anybody else. And I can't even imagine what an offense with all the speed when it gets on the field together is going to look like. So, I mean, just really, I think he'll be used a lot as a pass catcher. There were a couple plays where he blocked, and I mean, obviously they were the good ones. Putting some guys on the ground, making sure they're getting away. So he can do the pass blocking aspect, but at 223, I wouldn't, line him up all the time and have him banging down low. I want him out. I want him spread out. I want him running routes. He's got good footwork. He tracks the ball really well, and will go get the high point the ball or blow past someone. He's a true mismatch because of his athleticism. And that's where I want him as Purdue. So I think John's right. Right now, you've got Bryson Hopkins is going to be your guy at tight end. And then you've got a couple guys behind him. And then also Kyle Billadu, the All-American, as well in this class. So, I mean, but Jeff Brom's going to put the athletes and the football players out there. And I wouldn't put it past him if Garrett Miller can, have a good summer and fall camp. I don't see why Jeff Brom wouldn't want him out there just to, give him a look, give the defense something extra, because like you said, people might sleep on him a little bit. And I mean, he'll make them pay, which is, Jeff Brom's all about the matchups and finding those mismatches. And I think Garrett Miller's really going to be able to be one of those guys that does it. So definitely keep an eye on him. We'll see where he comes in again, like I said, in the fall or in the summer. But I agree with John, popping in and just watching him take seam routes and quick screens of the house.
You tell me, I hear who we're talking about, and you're like, tight end, blah, blah, blah. Then you kind of compare to Noah Fant. I'm like, all right, cool. So he's going to be, a solid, little project guy. And then, the first play I see, I'm like, this man is just, running a streak down the field, just,
basically 80-yard touchdown.
Naked open, and just, I mean, it's not like he slowed down. That man was just full sprint the whole time. Super impressive to watch, man. I didn't think I'd find a favorite kid in your class this low in the class, but man, I'm super excited to see him go to you guys.
Yeah,
kind of jealous we didn't notice him, but
well, obviously, kind of a little bit of a fine. TCU offered late, but not a lot.
Yeah,
Iowa exactly. State, obviously, and Colorado are the other two teams that you would say, okay, those are some big time names, but I guess that's what happens when you're buried in Texas. There's a lot of talent down there. Tough to find all the gems. So we'll see. We'll wait and see on Garrett Miller, but I'm happy he stayed. That he didn't go to TCU. And, really this Purdue class, just as we keep going through them, is just so exciting to really continue to see these guys and break them down. And we've still got
I don't want this to end.
To go. Well, let's see. We've got one. Cameron Allen, I think is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of good tape as a defensive back. He played quarterback first team. They won. He led them to a state championship and they won. But really like just some clips of him playing defensive back. Then we've got, so we've got him. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players left. I think it'll be a little hard to break down a punter. So,
dude, I am looking forward to breaking down our punter.
Well, maybe we'll do that.
Little punting experience. So I will definitely look forward to breaking down Jack Bowmeister.
And then after that, we've still got our 2 guys that haven't technically signed.
Speaking of which, I think he's actually next on for the Michigan State episode. Actually, no, it's just like he's an early enrollee, so he was up there. I got to figure this out again. My bad. Sorry, talking out loud.
No, you're good. And so excited to break down some more of the offensive linemen that Purdue got to, especially Spencer Holstage, I think his name is, and Dave Monat III from Joliet Catholic, who I'm familiar with from Illinois. But Spencer was nice enough to send us some extra tape when we told him about this. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what he looks like on film. And I know he's already at Purdue, 6'5", 275. That's a really good weight for me and good size inside. So, he's signed as a tackle, so maybe he'll be a tackle. I don't know. But, still some exciting guys in this class to go through, which as we continue to chug along, we will get through them. So next week, look for Cameron Allen, Niles Beverly, and Suleiman. I want to say Kapaka. I'm really sorry if I said that wrong. But another guy from Texas. So that's who will be on the lookout for next week. With that being said, John, any final thoughts?
No, man, just still in love with Garrett Miller's hair. He's got Rocky Lombardi-esque hair until Rocky Lombardi cut his hair.
He's got the flow. He's got the speed flow to make the flow blow in the wind.
Perfect player to have the flow.
You can't really ask for more than that, I guess. He's kind of got it all going for him.
Definitely I loved the quarterback, and then I'm like watching this guy's film. I'm like, man, woo.
Yeah, there you go. Purdue out here doing big things. So excited to see. They've been offering big fish 2020, obviously signing a top 25 class this year. I'm excited to see what happens when they cut loose some of these top freshmen this year and run all over people. So recruiting is now exciting for Purdue football, which I bet no one would thought they would be able to say, 3 years ago. So here we are. Well, I suppose with that being said, I'm Austin, co-host John Emmons. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard tonight, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Voice of the Fan, and also give us a listen on SoundCloud. And if you could, like our page on Facebook at Voice of the Fan and follow us on Twitter at Voice of the Fan PC. Thanks, everyone.